Hey, what's up guys and welcome back to askNK. Today we have some interesting updates coming from the folks at Epic Games Twinmotion. Epic Games Twinmotion 2022.1 Preview 1 is right here, and it comes with a huge set of features. The very first one is the path tracer, which changes the whole dynamics of how you can render things directly in Twinmotion. And at the same time, this leverages of the huge technology behind Epic Games Unreal Engine to offer these kind of features so that you can make that pretty nice image with this tool. There is also a HDRI sky dome for those who have been wondering about having some very cool look and feel to their renders. And this is also something that makes a lot of sense. The point cloud support is here. There's a support for 3D connection mouse. A material substitution table is also available. There's a new quick sell set of assets that you might want to work with. For those thinking about new furnitures and new assets, there's also something for you guys. There is also a brand new demo scene that you can play with. Pretty much, there's a whole lot of things that you guys may want to check out, including improvements, updates to stuff, and this is extremely lovely. Of course, we're going to talk about some things that are still under consideration, some things that are in progress, and also some things that have been released with this. But before we get into that, let's jump in and take a look at Twinmotion 2022.1 Preview 1. So with Twinmotion 2022.1 Preview 1 open right here, you can see that it looks literally the same. You know, it's more like the same thing that you get with Twinmotion, but with a couple of facelift and some updates. If you look down here, you'll notice that we have 3 different tools that we can work with. Right now, they have actually compressed this in such a way that if you like to move, scale, and rotate, everything now exists here. We also have a pivot shift that you can use to shift the pivots of your object depending on how your rotation would be. And we also have the local and the world axis. Now to illustrate something that makes sense, let's actually go in and get vehicle. I'm just gonna go in and pick anyone, that one, press F on the keyboard. Let's switch the material to something. Vivid red looks good. Look at this. This is what you get with Twinmotion, by the way. Let's just go ahead and do something. Go over to the materials, get a metal material, I think, and we can throw that there. This is what you get with the default Twinmotion. I mean, at best, if you go all the way back, and let's say we go all the way down, and we go to tools, and we go to reflection probes, and we grab this, and we throw this in here, at best, this is what you get. Lovely. We do love this. It's nice. It's awesome. But check this out. If you turn on the path tracer, this is what you get. The path tracer makes things even crazier, right? So if you turn on the path tracer, things get crazy from here. And check this out as well. If we go in and we choose to play with the time of day, it also affects it. So we can go in and play with the time of day. You can see this beautiful stuff going on. All right. This is extremely lovely. Now, this actually even gets crazier than this. Check this. If we go all the way to where we have our settings, go to the weather and start cranking this weather up. You can see that as well, looking extremely nice. You can see the water droplets. All right, let's just bounce this back and forth so you can see that. Look at the water droplets. If we turn this off, this is what you get by default. If we turn this on, pretty cool stuff. Let's turn this off and move this all the way back. All right, and take a look at something else. Now with this said, if we go all the way back and go over down here, you notice we now have sky dome. The sky dome is actually HDRIs that you can use to control how the look or how the lighting of your scene would look like. So click on the HDRI or the sky dome and you notice we have 3 different categories which deals with the low sun, noon, morning and afternoon. And these categories also have 3 different categories as well. And you can choose to select the clear, cloudy, or the overcast. If we choose the clear, you can see we have a couple of these things. You can download these things if you want. So let's say I would like this one. I can click on the download. It starts downloading. And once you're done, if you like to load any of this, simply click, drag, drop. And once you do that, automatically this is loaded directly into your scene, processes the entire scene, and you have your HDRI ready to rumble, and you can start doing some crazy, interesting things with it. This is the HDRI we loaded. You can choose to rotate this. And you can see with the raster rendering technology that we have, this is what it looks like. I mean, we're okay with this. This is at most the best with Twinmotion previously, but check this out. We can now play with this and get that high quality rendering going on. And of course, you can play with the sampling however you want. If you like to get low samples, and you can notice that there's a quick denoiser that actually works with this. If you like to get a medium sample, lovely. If you like to get a high sample, you can do that. If you like to put in a custom sample, you can also do that. So we can go in here and set this to 512 and press the enter button. And this is going to run through and sample this. So the amount of sample counts you have gives you cleaner images, but takes longer time. So I would simply suggest that you stick to something that just works, maybe medium or something that just simply deals with high. But if you are trying to just look dev directly on your scene, I will simply say stay with the low and get this happening. And when you're about to render, you can crank this as crazy as you want. We can also play with the intensity and crank this up and down, and we can rotate this. This is lovely. Let's take a look at how you can work with this with an actual scene. So the folks at Epic Games Twinmotion have also provided a demo scene, which is a lake house retreat scene. So if we go in and open this up, you can see what we have. This is exactly what everyone has been working with prior to this time, and it looks good. You can see this lovely stuff looking nice. This scene is a very heavy one. Let's take a look at what we can get if we choose to turn on the path tracer with a simple scene like this. Let's grab this and raise this all the way up and look at it. All right, so with this here, check this out, guys. Turn this on and voila. What do you know? You have this cool scene that you can play with. If you like to see this, all right, let's stop that and rotate this. Let's look at the greens and see what happens. If I tap R on the keyboard, actually, we can also activate the path trace and you can see this. So you can see that there's a big difference between what you have here and what you have once you're having that path tracing going on. Now, if you want to make things crazier, you can go over to your sky dome, select any of the sky domes that you want. Let's get that low sun, get that overcast, and maybe we can just pick any of this, click, drag and drop, and load this in. With this loaded in, we can now go ahead and tap R on the keyboard. So we can now rotate this however we want. If we like to rotate it like this, let's take a look at our scene and see what we have. Right. So if you like to get a very cool render like this with that nice HDRI, you can also choose to tweak this and get this lovely result. Let's see what it looks like right now, and that looks cool. You can play with as much as you want, and you can start doing some very impressive renders out of Twinmotion 2022.1. Let's take a look at the reflection, because I think this is actually one of those things that lots of you guys would like to see. So if we bounce this all the way back and we go over to Object, go over to Home, and go to the gym, we can get this adjustable bench. Let's drop that there. Let's rotate that. Tap F on your keyboard to jump in. Let's look at this. Okay, so at most, if you're using previous versions of Twinmotion, this is what you get. If I go in and drop a reflection probe, at most this is what we get. Okay, this is what we get. And yes, at that time this was good, but now it's different because we click on this button. You can now see that we're having that sweet reflection going there. And for sure, if you'd also want to play with the materials, you can click, with eyedropper, select the materials, and we can go over to the setting. We can turn on metalness if we would like to see some shiny stuff, and we can see this, and you can see that. And of course, I can turn this off, and we can, just simply turn that back on, and you can get these things going. So in this case, if you are into stuff like this, this is definitely one that you would like. Something that doesn't work with Twinmotion 2022 is this, that if I zoom in, or let's say if I go all the way in and I choose to throw in a light, let's just grab this light and position this light here and drag this all the way up, this light works. Okay, so you'll see it looks cool, nice, lovely light. Let's go in and stop that. But then we don't have that volumetric thing. This is something that you may have to switch to the raster renderer and use. You see this sort of effect right now. This is something that you might actually have to stick with the raster render to get, as in this case with the raster render we can have the haze and we can turn on shadows and get that shadows, but if we switch this on, you notice we don't have that. So this is one of those things that are currently not supported with this. There are also a couple of things like decals and stuff. These things are things that are yet to come, and I believe in a couple of releases and a couple of updates, we definitely will be getting some of these interesting things, and it is pretty nice. It is also worth knowing that while we speak about the rendering and also the HDRI, when you're working with the HDRI, let's say for example we go over to the cloud and I click on this cloud, click and drag and drop it in there. This is the brand new cloud that we get to work with. Once you're working with this cloud, it is worth knowing that as far as the sky dome is active, you will not be able to manipulate the time of day to your choosing. What do I mean? If we have this active as it is right now, and we're playing with this, it's looking all crazy and cool and stuff, and we hit the render button or tap R on the keyboard and it's rendering and we're having so much fun, you cannot have the both of them to work. This is just one thing. So at this point, if I go in here and I choose to play with the time of day, we would have little to no influence. You can see it's trying to do something, but nothing is actually working because we have the sky dome active. So if you would like to have the time of day control how your lighting would be, you may need to go over to where you have your settings, go over to where you have your lighting, and come right here and turn this off. Once you turn this off, you can now have access to the time of day, which you can use to manipulate how you would want this render to look. So in this case, if this is what you're going for, let's just look at that. So in this case, if this is what you're going for, you can now switch this and start rendering this beautiful stuff, and you can get it, and you can choose to also, work real time and see what you're getting. So, you can play with this, see how you can get that pretty nice stuff. And this is for those who would prefer to use the time of day to style their scene, contrary to using the sky dome. Within the weather, the clouds are not supported. So if I turn this off and I run this through, let's see that. So if I push this all the way up, you can see we have this lovely clouds happening there. If I choose to start rendering this, you notice the clouds disappear. And I guess this is where these things will come in handy. The sky dome will come in very, very handy at this point, and you can take advantage of this. Meanwhile, I know there's a couple of questions that you guys might have, and let's just talk about it. So you might have noticed that if I go in here, and let's just simply do that from here, go over here and go to lighting, turn on the sky dome. You will notice that once we have the path tracer running, the sky dome automatically becomes dark, or the render becomes dark. This isn't what you want. You want that lively render. So if we turn this off, you can see that we have some sort of cool render happening. Let's just move around. Let's look at this from a good point. Let's pan towards this view. Let's rotate this, and right here, perfect. So right here, you can see we have that. If we tap R on the keyboard, you notice that we have some sort of dark looking feel. Now the reason why this is happening is, if we go back and forth, you would notice that we're having some changes. All right, the path tracer is set to 0 in terms of sun intensity, and the ambient is set to 0.75. While if we turn this off, this is set to 0.5, and this is set to 10. So what you might want to do is to go over to the sun intensity and crank this up. So let's crank this up by 10, and there you have it. So this might not necessarily be like the crazy cranking you might want to do. So let's just make this 8, or maybe make this 6, for example. And in this case, you'll be getting something that looks way cleaner and way better. And in terms of your ambience, you might also want to crank the ambient maybe just a little bit. I would not suggest that you tamper with the exposure, depending on what you're trying to create. So if you go over to the exposure section and you turn this off, you turn it on, you notice everything stays the same. So I wouldn't suggest that you tamper with it. I do know that most of you guys may want to go into the sky dome and make changes, because if you turn this off, you would notice that the intensity from the sky dome is set to 5, and if we turn it on, you notice set to 1. The problem with this is, if we start cranking this one all the way up, we'll start losing a couple of details. Okay, so if we do that and crank this all the way up, you notice we start having this sort of washed out details there, and that is probably not what you want. So you might want to just play around with the settings here. Maybe set this to 1.0 something. Let's do that. 1.04 might be cool, I think. Nice. So we can set it at that. And we can also turn this on so that we can match with the sun. If you don't want to match with the sun, you can turn this off, and you can go wild with it. So this simply means that you are getting your stuff to do whatever it wants, and it's not matching with the sun. And you can have your sky dome rotate however you want it to rotate. And then, you might want to have that cloud there, and you might want to have the sun, playing around from a point like this. All right, so if this is what you're going for, then it is fine. But if you like to have this thing connected, then you can simply click on match with sun or match sun, and then you can have some pretty cool and decent renders with this one. For the materials, there's also a huge update to the materials. So if you go over to materials and you scroll all the way down, and you just simply check out for these materials, you notice that we have some very interesting improvements to the materials that you can work with, and you can switch these things back and forth. It is also worth knowing that within the settings, if you go over to preference, there's a couple of settings now that you can work with. The path tracer setting is here. The quality setting and the appearance setting is also here. And for the quality setting, things have been updated in the sense that at this point, if you like to get low settings for shadows, effects, textures, you can now make these changes by yourself. You don't necessarily need to go through one gigantic it must be ultra for everything, it must be high for everything. You can now make these custom settings yourself and do some pretty interesting things. Now let's talk about rendering, because at the end of the day, you have to render this stuff. Now with all of what we've just looked at, how do you choose what and how to render things. And before we even talk about render, you probably might have noticed that once you're working with the path tracer and you select anything, let's say for example, I am here and I choose to select and work with anything on my viewport, automatically it switches to the raster rendering, which is like the native rendering tool that exists, or the native way you get to render with Twinmotion, and you can work faster and you can create whatever you want. Okay, you can also check out, if you download this tool, you can also go over to the object section, go over to home, go over to kitchen and some other parts and see some of the new things that you can download from here. You can also grab some of them from the quick sales section, and you can check them out. You can see that we have the 3D plants, we have the decals, the 3D, the surface. All right, so back to rendering. So what if you would like to render some stuff? Say for example, you would want to render this. Let's just move this about a point like so. Let's say you like to render this, and in this case, we would like to render this as a path traced object. So how you can define these things is like so. You go over to where you have your media. You need to go to the image section, the video section, panorama section. It doesn't matter. Go over to this section and then make sure you have this path trace rendering active and click on the plus sign. So once it is turned on and it has this sign, it means this image is going to have path trace when rendering. Now, if we go over and select this other, image that we have here, you will notice it doesn't have that. And if we turn this on, you now notice that it's going to have it. So whatever setting that was made prior to that image being saved, that setting is still going to exist. And all you need to do is click on more, and then you can make changes to the settings just like we've mentioned. And like the lighting, the weather, you can make all those changes now. Now, if you already have some images that has the path trace and you want to take this path tracing out, you can just make sure they're selected, and then you can click on this button and turn this off. And this would affect how it would render, because if you go over to the image section where you have your rendering, if you click, you can choose to see only path traced or raster images. All right, so at this point, if we say we'd like to see the raster ones, we can click to see the raster ones. If we like to see the path trace or the path traced ones, we can see them, and we can also mix the both of them together and make some selection depending on what we want. And this applies to both videos, applies to panorama, and at the same time applies to every other thing. Right now, there is also the early access for cloud presentation, so you can also preview this and jump onto the cloud. And this way, if you already have clients, they can be able to preview these things on the fly and check what the project will look like without you being present. And of course, if you would like to come through and take a look at Twinmotion 2022.1, the preview one, you can go ahead and grab it from the folks at Epic Games and start playing with it. If you like to read up and see some of the new and improved features, check out some of the bug fixes, see some improvements, you can also go over to the link in the description that can bring you right here where you can see the release note, take a look at some of the bug fixes, and start playing with it. It is also worth knowing that if you like to get Twinmotion, you can get it for free, and you can get it by simply using the Epic Launcher. Go over to the Twinmotion tab, and then you can choose to download the trial version, or you can get this one. And for those who already own a Lenovo, the folks at Epic Games are doing this perpetual license giveaway, where if you already own a Lenovo ThinkStation or ThinkPad P series, you can have access to the perpetual license of Twinmotion from now till March the 31st of 2020. It is also worth seeing some of the things that are currently under consideration, things that might come over to Twinmotion like animated FBX, substance source integration, lots of things. There are a whole lot of things, like handheld cameras, things like this, amazing stuff. They are still under consideration and might be coming over to Twinmotion pretty soon. And there are already some things in progress that deals with exporting to Sketchfab, working with Sketchfab library directly in Twinmotion, construction equipment assets, some more assets, some rendering styles, lots of amazing improvements, and there are actually some things that have been released already. The things that deals with the 3D connection mouse, some assets, improved decals, VR improvement, and so much more. So this is more like it. And of course, I would like to know what you guys think about this one in the comment section. If you like this video or you learned something from this, you can go ahead and give a like, and don't forget to share with a friend. And until I see you guys in the next one, peace.